Okay, today we're going to talk a little bit about collar or risk reversal options. Recently learned about this and done a few trades with it. Thought it would be a good idea to go over how they actually work. So a lot of the stock option trading strategies are pretty much gambling. However, there are certain ones that can be considered relatively safe. I mean, stock options can be essentially looked at as insurance, and if you set them up the right way, this type of insurance can actually make you some profits. So whenever you're setting up any type of insurance, it usually costs money. But there is a way that we can actually make some money by having this insurance, and that's done by both limiting the loss as well as limiting the profit. And we'll go into a full example of how to set this up. Just an FYI, Schwab calls this setup a collar/synthetic. Interactive Brokers calls this a risk reversal. There might be other brokers that call this something else. I've kind of generally found that many brokers try to just confuse you with all of this terminology, but some of these setups are generally pretty simple. I would say collars are considered a relatively safe options trading strategy as opposed to the many others. So what we'll look at as an example is a Schwab ETF, and this ETF is SCHA. And what I've shown here is a 3-month graph. And we can kind of see what this price is over 3 months, the low and the high. We see that it does not fluctuate too much. I mean, we're going from 45 to 49. It's a relatively stable stock price. Now, the question we want to ask is, can we limit our loss somehow? Now, let's say we have this red line here, which is kind of below any price in the last 3 months, and we want to make sure that the price never actually goes below this. In other words, we want a guarantee that we can always sell at the price of this red line. Now, if you've done anything with options, you should recognize that this is what's called buying a put. In other words, buying a right to sell at a certain price. So we can do this. What we can do is pick a minimum price that we do not want the stock to go below. Let's say in this case, we pick $45. So essentially this means you need to buy a 45 put. And this gives you the right to sell at $45. If the price goes below $45, you still have the right to sell at $45. And so by having this put option, you are guaranteed no more than a set amount of loss. It is essentially your insurance. However, you need to buy this put, and buying something costs money. So you're essentially buying this insurance and you need to pay for it. However, with the collar, you can actually offset this cost with the other side of the collar by selling a call. Now, if you come back to this graph, and let's say we have a green line here where we essentially agree with ourselves that we are going to limit our profits to this green line. In other words, if the price goes above this green line, I'm going to say, okay, that's fine. I will still sell at this lower price. That's the sacrifice I pay for setting this limitation. Now, you may wonder, so why even set this limitation? Well, by setting this limitation, you can sell this, and you can get some money from this limitation to pay for the put that you want to buy. So what you do is you sell a call. So you pick a maximum price that you're willing to limit the profits at, Let's say in this case, I pick $50. So I sell a 50 call. And what this does is it gives you the obligation to sell at $50. If the price goes above $50, you are still obliged to sell at 50. Essentially, this limits the amount of profit that you can get. Now, this call itself is actually worth something on the market, and someone will buy it. And the proceeds that you get for selling this call will cover and hopefully exceed the cost for buying the put. In other words, the cost of buying the insurance. So the desired end result is you have insurance guaranteeing you can always sell at a fixed lower bound price, regardless of what the stock does. As a counterpart, you also have limited the amount of profit you can make on the stock. And this is the price you pay for getting the insurance. You have likely made some money on making the collar trade. You always want to try to make this a profitable trade and not actually lose money on the collar, because there's kind of no point in losing money when you set this up. And your kind of end goal is that the options will expire worthless. In other words, the stock has stayed within the bounds that you set, and you made money immediately when you set up the collar. That's kind of the desired end result. Now, some of you may look at this and say, limiting profits, that kind of sucks. What if the stock price goes way above this green line? Well, you've still made some profit. It's just limited. You may not like having this limit, but that's the price that you kind of have to pay for this downside insurance when you set up this collar. You can think of the opposite. Let's say the price goes way below your red line. Now, you've already made money on setting up the collar, and you've also limited your loss. In other words, even if the price goes to zero, you can still sell at 45. Now let's look at a real example. Let's say I have 544 of SCHA, which is the Schwab Small Cap ETF. Its current price is $47.53, and today's date is June 24th. I want to set a lower bound of $44 that I can always be guaranteed to sell at, and I'm going to pick an upper bound that I'm willing to lose profit if it goes over. Let's say in this case I pick $49. I also need to pick a time frame that this whole collar will be valid for, and let's say it's 2 to 3 months. At the end of that 2 to 3 months, you can set the collar up again if you like, or just, don't bother with it. Since I have 544 of the stock, I can trade 5 options. It's because each option is considered 100 shares. So what I need to do is I need to buy 5 SCHA puts at 44, and I need to sell 5 SCHA calls at 49. The call sell price should be higher than the put buy price. In other words, what I'm selling is worth more than what I'm buying. And this is important to actually make a profit on this trade. Here's an example of what it looks like if you were to make this order on Schwab. You would be trading options, and the type of option is what's called a collar/synthetic. And here is an example of the order entry. Here I am selling 5 SCHA calls for August 16th, which is 2 months away, and I'm buying 5 SCHA puts at the same strike time. The important thing is what I'm selling, its midpoint here is higher than what I'm buying. So this difference between the sell and the buy is 53 cents. And that is essentially the profit. What you want to do is set your limit price to be this midpoint. You can pick whatever price you want, but the midpoint is usually a good starting point. An important thing is you set your order type to credit, I mean, it's going to default to debit, which means it's going to take money and not actually give you money. The estimated amount here is what will be deposited into your account if this trade were to go through. But the important thing is the sell is worth more than the buy. Just to reiterate, at Schwab, the default order type is debit. You need to change this to credit if you want to make any profit on the trade. In our example, we saw the midpoint was 53 cents. That's a reasonable limit price to use. The estimate that it gave me was $265. This is before any fees. Schwab will charge around $6. If this trade succeeds, I should get around $259 deposited in my account, as well as the collar setup. Now, the kind of goal here is that the stock stays within that collar, doesn't go above that green high price I set, and it doesn't go below the red low price that I set. These options, they will expire worthless. However, you've got $259 additionally in your account, and then in a few months you can possibly repeat this process to earn the same amount, for example. So in summary, I mean, if you plan these collars wisely, you can get some decent supplemental income just by having them. And along with this income, you have some insurance that the price never goes below your price that you set. In this example, the income is around $100 a month, but you can imagine doing these trades on a much larger portfolio across many different stocks. The major downside is you're limiting your profits. If you do this on a relatively stable stock or ETF, you kind of don't expect this stock price to skyrocket within the short time span of 2 to 3 months. So by planning this setup, you can possibly earn a pretty good income from. So there you have it. That's how collars work. There's some good books on this topic. I will link one in the description that you can check out.